Okay, so we saw in the last video that when we went from one profile to another and we changed this route parameter, for example, I'll go to 123 right now, it doesn't update over here. And that's because Vue.js is recycling the component and it doesn't recreate the data. So we can circumnavigate this by asking this component, the Vue profile component, to watch this route object. And then when it changes, we can react by updating the user ID stored inside this data right here. And then we can update it in the template. So how do we watch this route object? Well, pretty simple. First of all, what we need to do is set up a watch property down here. This is an object, and this is where we can ask our component to watch certain things, certain variables or objects. And when that variable or object changes, then we can call a function and do something to react to that. So what do we want to watch? We want to watch the route object. So we're saying watch the route object, and when this changes, run a function. What function do we want to run? Well, we'll run a function called update ID. Now that doesn't exist at the minute, but it will do in a minute when we've created it inside the methods property. Don't forget your comma at the end of the object. Then we'll create this function called update ID. Okay, so now we've watched for this route object. Now if a user goes to a different route, this thing right here is going to say, hey, this has changed, the route has changed, therefore what I'm going to do is fire this function update ID. So now in update ID, what I could do is access this thing again, this .route.params.userid, which is going to refer to the new ID that the user has just entered at the end of the URL, and we can set that to this. So we'll say this.userid is equal to this.route.params.userid. Makes sense? We're watching the route. When a user changes it in the address bar or via a link, then it's going to fire this function. In this function, we're saying, okay, get this.userid, which is this thing, and I want you to update the value of that with this.route.params.userid. And when we do that now, it's going to look at the route and it's going to find the new parameter. All right? So this is getting updated with the new parameter. When that happens, when the data changes inside a component, we know that it re-renders and the template is going to update with the new user ID right there. So if we save this now, let's give this a whirl in a browser. We're currently on profile 123. If I change this to 456 now, then it's updating. We don't need to go to a different component first to destroy that component. It's updating automatically even though we're recycling the component. Okay, 987. Cool. So that's how we watch the route object so that when it changes, we can react by running a function, and that function can update the data right here with the new route parameter.